Hello, I am your everyday average Jonathan. They say that March in Colorado is when all the big snow comes. And I think that today, being the Ides of March and 30 plus inches of snow dumped, might make that a true statement. So because I am done shoveling and blowing and trying to plow, I'm gonna go to my shop and do a quick tool review. So come join me. I'm going to review and compare and contrast Ridgid and Ryobi power tools from the perspective of a DIY home shop self-taught project enthusiast. Let's get to the shop and get started. All right, let's jump right on in. The sole purpose of this video is simply this. I have spent a lot of time and a lot of money over the past 10 years purchasing, using, refurbishing, warranting Ryobi, at first Ryobi, and then I started to transition to Ridgid. In the process, I learned some surprising things. So the goal is this: if anything that I can say or any of my input on these tools helps save somebody some dollars, some stressful hours trying to manage tools that aren't working correctly, awesome, that's the goal. I've gone through all of that. All right, right about 10 years ago, in 2014, I started to build projects from home. I started with purchasing Ryobi tools from Home Depot. And without having any other experience with any of the other power tools in the market, I was generally pleased with what I had. They served the purpose. Fast forward 4 to 5 years from that point, and I was exposed to using Ridgid tools through a friend of mine in Idaho who had them. And I really liked what I saw and what I experienced with those particular tools. So then what I did is I decided to slowly transition my quiver of arrows that are Ryobi, slowly but surely over to Ridgid. Fast forward to today, what I have experienced, I have warrantied these tools, I have refurbished these tools myself, I have bought many batteries. Many of these are cordless. I have bought many of their batteries and tested their battery strength, longevity, reliability. All right, straight to the comparison. And again, this is my experience. Someone else is gonna have different experience, but I have used a lot of Ridgid and a lot of Ryobi. I would consider myself an expert on these particular tool brands. Okay, straight in. What I discovered surprised me. I don't have these particular items here, but I'm gonna start with the impact drivers. I had never used an impact driver before until I bought one in 2014 that was a Ryobi, and I started to use it around my house. I loved it. Loved it. For drilling, for driving, I was very impressed. I still have that original impact driver. It's not with me, it's at my house. I use it if I need something at the house, I'm gonna run to get that. I still have that 10 years on with probably the same batteries that I used it with, and it works flawlessly. It works wonderfully. It never peters out. It does everything that I ask it to do. In the same amount of time that I'm talking about now, I have also purchased at least 2 Ridgid impact drivers and at least 3 Ridgid cordless drills. I am surprised to say this because my perception has been that Ridgid is an upgrade from Ryobi, but I've had nothing but issues with those 5 items. The Ridgid's batteries gave out, while the Ryobi's batteries, I still have them. 2 out of the 3 Ridgid drills that I had broke, gave up. 2 out of 2 of the Ridgid impact drivers that I had broke, gave up. All that while, one single Ryobi impact driver has stayed with me. Now that said, Ridgid as a brand offers a really cool they did offer a very cool warranty program. I believe it's changed a little bit. There used to be a shop not too far from me that would take the actual Ridgid tool and the battery and they would look at it, they would warranty it, Ridgid would pay for it, and you'd get your tool back. I think that's changed. That shop no longer does that anymore. I believe when I last talked to them, they said that the warranty model had changed. I haven't checked into it because I just stopped. So Ridgid did have, or still might have, a really cool warranty program, whereas Ryobi, I don't even know if they have a warranty program. Why? Because I've never needed to use it. This is my original angle grinder. This is my original circular saw. That said, literally every tool that is Ridgid that you see here is the second, maybe the third iteration that I've owned. Some of these have been warranted, some of these are just new that I bought because the other ones gave up the ghost. We used the comparison of the impact drivers. I'll do one other comparison of 2 tools that I actually have with me. These cordless angle grinders. This Ryobi will just keep going until you burn this motor out. And that's why this is my second one, because I did burn the motor out. It's not stupid powerful, but it gets the job done. And it does so willingly and compliantly. This, I don't have anything good to say about this. I still have it just because I don't want to throw it away. But this is a horribly underpowered, obnoxious piece of crap of an angle grinder. And here's the reason why. A, it's underpowered, and it's not the batteries. This is my second one. It's behaved the exact same way as the first one. I don't know if there's a chip in here that does this. I do not know, but this has been true across the Ridgid platforms. I think it's a built-in design feature. When I start applying pressure onto a piece of material with this machine, as well as some of the other ones here, decides in and of its own accord that it's getting too hot, it's struggling too much, it's gonna hurt itself or burn up its motor, and it shuts itself off. In the midst of me cutting and using it, it will shut itself off. When I'm doing a nominal task, which I've done many times on my videos, and I'm just cutting away a piece of metal 2, 3, 4, 5 times during that small cut, it will shut itself off. And I will have to come back out here. I hate this button trigger, I hate it. I'll have to come back out here and reactivate it and get it going again. It's a terribly annoying feature. I understand that it's there to save the motors and save the bushings and that sort of things, but Ridgid, just help me get my job done. I don't want to preserve the life of this piece of garbage if it means taking 2 to 3 times longer for every operation if it would with much cheaper and much more expensive options that are out there. That's a huge fail on my part. Second big area, and this is not universally true across the products here, but the ergonomics of this is giant, clunky, brutish in the hand. This has a handle that's almost like a pistol grip with the trigger, and you press the trigger, turn it on and off. This is a thumb actuated thing that just is out of it. The form factor is terrible. While I say that's not universally true, it certainly is something that stands out to me when I'm using different things. There is nothing about Ryobi in my hand that I've ever thought this is clunky, this is obtrusive, nothing about it. Okay, power. These are cordless. I have many of these are also cord items. I don't worry about the corded items. I look at the RPMs before I buy them. I look at the amps for the batteries before I buy them. But that said, these are all pretty close in general across the cordless items. Once you have the batteries in and you're going to use these things, power. I had thought that Ridgid brought more power to its game per device than Ryobi. That just hasn't been the case. And it's so annoying because you're paying for more and you're trying to pay for something that I believe is at least American owned, probably not American made. I'm pretty darn sure that these are made in a country that rhymes with Aunt Jemina. But when it comes to the cordless offerings, there has been none of the Ridgids that have stood out to me obviously more powerful. I give them probably an equal power rating. With the big exception that Ryobi doesn't shut itself off when you're using it. It just keeps going. And somehow, some way, the Ryobi tools I have abused, and they haven't shut off during that abuse, and they're still with me. Whereas Ridgid tools, I have not been able to abuse because they keep shutting off, and then they fall apart, and they don't work, and I have to warranty them. All right, last few categories. Battery life. We got through power, which is generated from this, but battery life, to me, is about the same. But with complete objectivity, I would give the edge to this because it doesn't get hot and shut itself off. It just keeps on going. So I would say, in general, the Ryobi battery seems to last maybe 10% longer. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, price. Ryobi is the entry-level price point. They make a ton of tools. They're across all the Home Depots. The prices on these and the bundles and the packages you can get with the batteries are just really attractive. They're really, really good. Ridgid's not that much more expensive. They're pretty close, and as a brand, they look like they should be a little bit more advanced, so the notion of paying a little bit more for them makes sense, but from my experience as I'm getting, these should be priced 30% lower for all of the heartache and the issues that I've had with these than the Ryobis. Last point. Number of products, product breadth and depth across each of these brands. And there is just no question, there is no other power tool maker out there that I'm aware of that has a greater offering of products than Ryobi. Every now and again, I'll go on the Home Depot website or Ryobi's website and just look at some of the new things coming out. And I have to say, even though they're made in the country that rhymes with Aunt Jemina, they've got some pretty well thought out products. And honestly, so does Ridgid. Some of Ridgid's larger format corded tools, like their chop saw that I have and a few other items, are really, really good. We're just talking about the hand power tools at this point. Conclusion. I, as a red-blooded American man, want desperately to give all of my business to other American-made tools. I don't mind paying a little bit more for something if it's American-made, but it at the least has to be close to being par with its competition. If I'm paying more and it is clearly subpar and it's costing me money, it's costing me extra time on every project, and it's costing me the heartache of having to fix it or gear it, warranty it, or just have to buy a new one, then it makes it extremely difficult for me to justify staying with this brand. Postscript. Instead of me encamping and continuing and buying Ryobi, because I don't want to give my money, I don't want to see the money that I've earned go outside the country I want to stay in, and because I most likely never again am going to buy a Ridgid cordless tool, I have been gradually transitioning to DeWalt, and I've been really happy with DeWalt, both their cordless and their corded tools. And they're an American brand. They are probably maybe close to twice the price of the Ryobis and maybe 50% more than these Ridgids, but so far, I can't say enough good about the DeWalts. Postscript. Yes, there are other brands, Milwaukee, Makita, Bosch. I have 2 Hilti drills over there that I paid a lot of money for. And they have all sorts of merits, and I'm sure someone's going to suggest, have you tried this brand or that brand? I am a do-it-yourself guy. I am a cheapskate when it comes to these things. I have a very small budget that I'll allow myself to spend. I would love to be purchasing those other brands, some of those other brands, and trying them out. But by and large, I'm very happy with the DeWalt, and I'm honestly happy with these tools right here as well. So I don't see myself changing from that. I hope that was helpful. I hope that if there's anyone else out there who's getting started or looking at how do I budget for certain tools, that this might help them decide on where to go. My first recommendation is do everything you can to buy American made within your budget. Second recommendation is if you can't accomplish that and there's a choice between 2 brands, I'm sorry, Ridgid, on the cordless market, I cannot and will not ever buy another tool from you again or recommend that. And if push comes to shove and my budget was so limited, I would absolutely recommend and buy Ryobis. Thank you for joining me. I'd love to hear what budget-conscious tools are working for you. Maybe there's a brand that is in the same genre, in the same market sector that is really good. Lowe's, for example, sells a brand named Cobalt. I don't know a thing about Cobalt. They look great, but I have a suspicion that they too are also made in a country whose name rhymes with Aunt Jemina. Thank you for joining me. Until next week, God bless.